I'm joined now by Mark Nagel. He's a professor of sports entertainment management at the University of South Carolina in Columbia. Mark, China has already reached a big goal, winning more medals in this Winter Olympics than in 2010. And one of the latest, a snowboarding medal, so pretty new for them. What does this all do for the growth of winter sports in China?
I think anytime you host the Olympics, that's one of the things you hope is a residual of hosting, is that the excitement that you generate having so many of your own athletes competing in sports that maybe your own country hasn't seen much leads to more kids, young people playing that sport. So I think China's done very well in some winter sports they've been successful in traditionally in the last 2 or 3 Olympic cycles, and they've shown themselves pretty well in some sports they haven't really participated that heavily in. And so I think there's going to be a lot of people in China that are going to look at some of these sports with a different eye towards participation and then ultimately competing at a high level.
A lot of buzz around the Russian figure skater and the latest with that investigation. I want to get your thoughts on this investigation. Could it end before the games? In other words, what are the chances that any of these team members will get their medals before heading home? How long can this go on?
Well, unfortunately, I think you've got a couple of different things that have happened. One, just the whole procedure of not making the decision until now. This was on a drug test that was done months ago. And so that's very, very frustrating that the will she not compete? Will we have a medal ceremony? Will we not? That's got to be a very aggravating. I don't know that anyone can accurately say exactly what's going to happen or when it's going to happen. And I think the other angle to this with the age issue, if you're going to have athletes that are going to compete against adults, 15-year-olds or other teenagers, you in many ways have to hold them to the same standard. You can't necessarily say to one athlete, well, he or she is underage and so she doesn't have the same responsibility for drug testing. So I think that's a secondary mess besides the timing, is just how are we going to deal with this going forward with athletes who are not yet of age to make adult decisions, but they're participating in adult-oriented sport activities.
Well, at this point, aren't there procedures or rules in place? Because we do see a lot of athletes underage competing, maybe not as many in the Winter Games, but certainly in the Summer Games. There are plenty of teenage athletes.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's one of the joyous things about the Olympics, is that especially if you're underage, but you're able to compete on the world stage, you certainly should be able to do that. I think one of the arguments, one of the discussions regarding doping has been, can you hold an underage person accountable for drugs that they may have in their system if they're not necessarily of age to make the decisions regarding what they eat and what they ingest and so forth. And so I think it's just created another interesting question mark in the Olympics. And that's the last thing you want to have in any Olympic Games. You want to have the focus be on competition and camaraderie and celebration of the achievements, not is there a doping test? Does this person get a waiver from the doping test? When are we going to know when the doping test is decided? And then even worse is our court system is going to get involved while the games are ongoing, and not just the athlete that's in question, but all the other athletes have to wait to receive their medals because they don't necessarily know if they're going to get a medal or if they're even going to have a medal ceremony. Is really a big question mark.
Mark, we've seen some new events added to these games to give more opportunities to female athletes, like in the monobob, as we saw, also mixed snowboard cross. Is this just the beginning? Could we see more at the next games?
I think so. I think the Olympics, the IOC, would like to continue to expand, because the more different events there are, the greater their chance there is to get new participants and to develop new fan bases. So I think this trend is only going to continue. And in fact, when you look at the Winter Games now versus where the Winter Games were 20 years ago, in the number of events, the number of athletes participating, the number of countries that are fielding teams in different sports and sending individual athletes for different sports, it's only a positive. And I think there's some good momentum in the Winter Games to continue to expand in the future.
All right, Mark Nagel in Columbia, South Carolina, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.